let Will Smith win. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
From silver screen hero to a man wrestling with his own spotlight, Will Smith's shift was hard to ignore, and Bill Maher couldn't resist weighing in on the spectacle. One day, Will's inspiring millions with uplifting speeches, and the next he's on stage sounding like a self-proclaimed philosopher. But Maher didn't deliver a typical hot take. He tore through the image of the unshakable leading man with a sharp mix of humor and bold commentary, blending wit with chaos. And when one of Hollywood's most beloved good guys steps away from the big screen, it's not some grand revelation or higher wisdom waiting at the end. It's the raw, ironic humor of watching an icon's polished image crack.
It's time for another edition of one of our favorite departments here on Real Time, explaining jokes to idiots. As a public service, I break down jokes for the humor impaired. Not that I have anyone particular in mind.
Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying this. The support goes further than you might imagine. Bill Maher didn't just comment on the infamous slap. He revived it, sharpened it, and turned it into a mirror reflecting the fragile egos of Hollywood's so-called strong men who still confuse insecurity with desire. While everyone else chose to move on, Maher hit pause and said, "Wait a second," rewinding the scene like a detective reopening a cold case. And the true identity of what lay beneath that moment remained as hazy as ever.
Sick of talking about the slap, but I'm sorry, one more thing needs to be said. Comedians have been under attack for quite some time, and I need to stick up for my tribe. This war on jokes must end. So tonight, let's Zapruder film this thing once and for all and explain jokes to idiots.
And he wasn't wrong. Somewhere between the Oscar stage and Jada's gaze, the spirit of genuine manhood slipped out of Hollywood without a trace. Like every overproduced award night, it all began with a glittering parade, celebrities too famous to remember what embarrassment feels like, endless champagne, and a stage that sparkled more than it spoke. Then Chris Rock stepped up, tossed out a few sharp jokes like a comedic shield for Gotham, and in that charged moment, the new self-proclaimed prince of emotions convinced himself he was the hero of the night.
At the Oscars, Chris Rock came out to present a boring award and first did what he is supposed to do, get some laughs doing what we comics call crowd work. Denzel and Javier Bardem each got spritzed. And then Chris made what in the business is known as a "some shit is like some other shit" joke.
Honor was never really on the line that night when the slap echoed around the globe. The real mission was protecting an image. That strike wasn't a burst of chaos, it was a perfectly staged panic dressed up as bravery. Maher saw straight through the performance, spotting the moment when a man trying to play the alpha male fumbled his own script. And when the absurdity reaches that kind of flawless timing, comedians can't help but laugh. And Maher did exactly that.
To Jada Smith, Jada can't wait for G.I. Jane 2, recalling the late 90s movie starring Demi Moore. That's it. That's the joke. You remind me of some other beautiful, buzz-cutted movie star. It wasn't an alopecia joke any more than the one about the chicken crossing the road is about bird flu. Not an insult, although insult humor.
Will Smith trying to flex his toughness at the Oscars was about as convincing as a vegan proving his manliness at a backyard grill. It just doesn't land without a layer of irony. But Maher's response was more than a clever roast. It was a full-blown analysis. He watched, almost clinically, as every fragile ego in Hollywood reflected itself through Will's shift from chuckling at a joke to unleashing theatrical outrage. That's the trap of our era. Every celebrity wants to look fierce, forward-thinking, and deeply wise all at once. Maher flipped the moment into a masterclass in comedy. Like a frog on a classroom table, he took the joke apart piece by piece, exposing it as nothing more than a harmless punchline. The G.I. Jane remark wasn't a dagger aimed at Jada. It was closer to a backhanded compliment. But outrage doesn't care about facts. It just needs a signal and a Wi-Fi connection. In seconds, the internet turned a throwaway line into a so-called hate crime with sound effects.
As long as you're on the team of the woke, you can't make fun of the things that they prize. As long as you're making fun of the stuff that the kind of people of the woke fight against, which are white trash, I can make 1,000 fat jokes about Donald Trump. You'll never see a complaint on Twitter because the woke are the ones who do that. The conservatives, they may not like the fat jokes about Donald Trump, but they are a lot easier about just brushing it off their shoulder.
That's when Maher really got to work. Comedy used to be where society laughed at itself, not filed a complaint about it, he said. Back then, if someone was offended, they just rolled their eyes and moved on. Now they expect compensation for their bruised feelings. The Oscars once gathered proud egos pretending to be humble. Today, it's more like a group therapy session for the hypersensitive. The climate has changed, and with every half-hearted apology, there's a storm of outrage waiting to break. The irony? Will Smith himself ended up proving Maher's point. That single moment didn't just dim masculinity, it flipped the switch entirely. What should have been a classy night turned into a Hollywood spectacle, a textbook display of how celebrities operate, real emotion first, followed by public image repair. The world didn't just see a slap, it witnessed a live tutorial in social compliance. You could almost see Will's thoughts flash across his face. Wait, am I laughing wrong? Better fix that before Twitter decides for me. And in trying to fix it, he hit Chris Rock so hard that his own reputation took the bigger blow, the kind that still echoes in silence.
Originally, Chris's joke was received as funny, as evidenced by the audience and Will Smith laughing. And this is the moment where we got to see a live-action, real-time encapsulation of how cancel culture works. Look at what happens next. Jada shoots her husband a look. Let's slow the tape down to capture this moment. There. Back and to the left. Back and to the left.
Maher tore that argument apart like tissue paper, mocking the absurd idea that virtue and violence could ever be the same thing. He pointed out how some people seem to believe that to protect a relationship, you must silence your sense of humor, and when in truth, being able to laugh at yourself is the real show of strength. To him, true power isn't in swinging your fists, it's in laughing even when the joke lands on you. That's what separates someone casually strolling a red carpet with wealth and status from someone fragile underneath it all. But Hollywood isn't exactly known for its self-awareness. Its go-to tools are staged sorrow and carefully worded statements. Every disagreement turns into a TED Talk, and every apology gets its own sad piano soundtrack. Will's struggle wasn't unique. It was the predictable outcome of an industry where identity has been swapped for branding. Kevin Hart loses gigs over a tweet, Gilbert Gottfried is erased for being himself, and Will Smith gets to keep his trophy after a very real slap. Reality outpaces satire at this point. Maher highlighted the twisted logic. Jokes are treated like crimes, and actual bad behavior gets spun into a PR problem. That's not progress, it's prime time to make ice. It's performance without substance. And it isn't just Hollywood, comedy itself has been cornered. Stand-up stages once built for laughter now need legal disclaimers to keep audiences calm. Maher likened it to hecklers who stay silent during the punchline but claim it wasn't funny once the room has already erupted.
Will Smith was always, in my view, a fantastic movie star.
One of the best.
But movie star, but not somebody who I thought of as a great actor. Not bad.
Right.
He got through the material.
Right.
But, you know, he's not playing parts that are demanding. He's a movie star, which the world needs more than fucking actors, by the way.
Right.
Please, more movie stars, less actors.
Right.
But in this movie, what an amazing acting performance where you don't see the acting. That's why it's so great. I mean, he is astounding.
This has become the new national pastime. The moment a joke hits, someone rushes to build a fence around it. There's practically a committee somewhere deciding what kind of laughter is acceptable. Will Smith thought he was doing the noble thing, but in reality, he ended up as the walking meme of every man who confuses pride with ego. Maher's roast peeled back the layers, the emotional fragility, the paper-thin bravado, and the desperate hunger for validation underneath it all. That night wasn't just about one slap. It was about a culture that excused it, rationalized it, and then pretended that podcasts could fix the fallout. The irony deepened as Maher zoomed in. He reminded everyone that comedians have always been society's pressure valves, saying out loud what polite folks only whisper. Jokes and jabs have always been part of the game, especially at the Oscars. For the Hollywood elite, a sharp line is supposed to sting for one night, not spark a public meltdown. That's the unspoken deal. Wear the jewels, take the roast. Will broke that code when he turned what should have been a lighthearted joke into a live group therapy session. And that, Maher showed, is where humor starts to crumble.
Is laughing because he hasn't yet found out that his original genuine reaction is wrong and that he should conform to a different view. And he's the one who's being manly? I've seen the same syndrome happen in comedy clubs. Woke hecklers who literally have to wait for the laughter to die down before they yell, "That's not funny."
That's when Maher's sarcasm cut the deepest. Maybe the problem isn't the comedian. Maybe it's your fragile ego wrapped in a multi-million-dollar tuxedo. Being famous means sipping champagne while the crowd takes playful shots at you. That's part of the deal. The moment you start swinging instead of laughing, you're basically declaring bankruptcy on your self-awareness. Then Maher widened the scope. This isn't just about celebrities losing their sense of humor. It's spreading everywhere. Colleges are banning comics, and audiences are demanding sarcasm-free zones. Campuses that once championed free thought are slowly turning into boot camps for censorship. An entire generation now flinches at context. Instead of laughing, they start drafting apology letters to themselves the second a punchline lands. Maher pointed out how comedians like Nish Patel, who once echoed woke values in their sets, are now getting silenced too. There's no way to win. Say something edgy and you're canceled. Say something uplifting and you're accused of stealing. The only joke left untouched is about airplane food, and even that offends someone who's been through turbulence. And through it all, Will Smith's slap remains the perfect metaphor. Emotion first, thought second, a product of a culture that worships performance over perspective.
I'm like in the last 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's fantastic, and he's amazing. So I'm not saying I excuse the slap now, but I totally get why he was in such an emotional state, playing that character. And look, I think award shows are stupid and horrible, and you can't say who's best actor because there's many people playing different parts that have to each play each other's parts to really judge this.
Yeah.
It's all opinion.
Maher's entire tirade was really a sharp, sarcastic plea for common sense. He wasn't defending violence, he was pushing for resilience. For centuries, people have used humor to get through pain, and when that outlet is stripped away, all that's left is a simmering rage with nowhere to go. Not liking a joke doesn't mean it shouldn't exist, he reminded the audience. The greatest censorship tool ever invented is still the remote control. Don't like it? Change the channel. If every punchline had to pass a moral purity test before being told, half of comedy's history would disappear. Imagine trying to explain Don Rickles to a Twitter moderator. You'd violate 3 rules before finishing the setup. Maher's bigger point carried a philosophical edge. Humor is meant to challenge and unsettle just enough to make people think. Remove that tension and comedy stops being art. It turns into customer service. He tied that idea to modern masculinity. What once carried depth has now been repackaged by influencers selling alpha mindset podcasts and gym plans, offering a hollow, performative version of strength. Everyone wants to be both unshakably strong and deeply sensitive, like a self-aware shark. Will Smith became the living example of that paradox, a man too insecure to stay seated, yet desperate to look powerful.
Kevin Hart got kicked out of hosting it for a joke. Who are these people who say cancel culture isn't a real thing? Just among comedians who've gotten fired and lost gigs for exercising their freedom of expression, the toll is high. Gilbert Gottfried, and Kathy Griffin were tasteless. So what? That's why we like them.
The irony woven into Maher's comedy is what made it hit so hard. He painted Hollywood as a gym for fragile egos, a place where people constantly measure each other's worth and crave applause. With just the right lighting, every award show starts to look like a group therapy session, and every teary-eyed apology video resembles a 4K hostage recording. All those so-called tough guy moments on stage, just tuxedo-wrapped PR meltdowns. And yet, beneath the laughter, there's a quiet sadness because Maher's right. The joke itself is fading. Punchlines are now pre-sanitized by the very industry that once gave us legends like George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Joan Rivers. Audiences cheer this soft censorship on, mistaking control for compassion, and what we get in return is comedy so bland it might as well be a health brochure. Real strength laughs in the face of discomfort. It doesn't try to muzzle it. The moment you try to manage humor, you're putting your insecurity on display. Hollywood is a glass house, every smile rehearsed, every reaction scripted. So when something real happens, like that infamous slap, the whole system short circuits, the mask cracks, and panic rushes in. Maher turned that panic into pure comedic gold, reminding everyone that when the act falls apart, the only real response left in show business is to laugh.
So I get why he was, I don't get why he chose to slap somebody. And
Hold on, he didn't do the role the day of the Oscars.
No, but it was
probably a year before that he shot it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That was what was suffused into his mind and his emotions that day. You're going to the Oscars. It wasn't that far back in his life that he couldn't remember it. I'm sure it was still very raw. And I mean, the tears, I totally get all that. Now, again,
Come on.
I do.
As a comedian, you can't, I don't give him this
No, I'm
much
not
of
saying, I'm not excusing the slap. I'm just saying I get why he was crazy emotional.
The slap has outlived the night it happened, still acting as a cultural Rorschach test years later. For some, it symbolized the collapse of a carefully crafted image. For others, it was painted as an act of courage. But Maher saw something deeper. In Will Smith's desperate attempt to prove strength, he ended up revealing its exact opposite. It was poetic irony in real time. A man trying to claim respect and losing it in front of millions. Bill Maher didn't attack a man, he dismantled a mindset. He held up a mirror to a culture where being offended matters more than being funny, and where looking good takes precedence over being genuine. He showed how Hollywood, a place that once thrived on raw wit and thick skin, now shatters at the slightest jab. That slap wasn't just a personal outburst, it was a live demonstration of an entire system's fragility. Comedy has always been a pressure valve. Legends like George Carlin and Richard Pryor built their legacy on provoking thought through discomfort, but today punchlines are pre-approved, audiences flinch at context, and stars confuse ego for honor. Will's reaction embodied that shift. A moment when performance trumped perspective. Maher's roast simply peeled the illusion away. The lesson is almost too simple to miss. When you're in the spotlight, surrounded by cameras and comics with microphones, just smile. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Laughing means you're part of the joke, not the punch. The instant you forget that, you don't just react, you become the meme. True strength isn't in striking back, it's in staying grounded. Because in the end, enduring a joke with grace is power, and turning yourself into a spectacle is the fastest way to lose it.